The birthday cake sat in the center of my dining table. 42 candles, though I'd only put on 20 because any more felt like a fire hazard. The frosting was her favorite, buttercream with raspberry filling, the same cake I'd made for every one of her birthdays since she was 3. But when she walked through that door and saw who was actually sitting at the table, when she realized whose birthday we were really celebrating, her face went white as chalk. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I got here. To this moment, to this table, to this terrible, beautiful day. My name is Margaret. I'm 67 years old, and for the last 9 years, I've been what some people might call a doormat, what others might call a mother, what I've come to call a prisoner in my own home. It started small. It always does, doesn't it? My daughter Rachel moved back home when she was 33. Her marriage had fallen apart, she said. She needed just a few months to get back on her feet. I had the space. The house was too big for just me anyway, had been since my husband Thomas passed 6 years earlier. Of course she could come home. That's what mothers do. Those few months became a year, then 2, then 5, now 9. Somewhere along the way, my daughter stopped being my guest and started being my warden. It happened so gradually I barely noticed. First, she was just staying in her old bedroom. Then she started commenting on my cooking. "Mom, this chicken is so dry. Don't you know how to cook anymore?" She'd push her plate away, order takeout, and leave me with the bill. Then came the money. "Mom, I need to borrow $200, just until my paycheck comes." Except the paycheck never seemed to come. Or it did, but then she needed more. For her car, for her clothes, for her therapist, who was helping her work through the trauma of her divorce, the divorce that was somehow all my fault because I'd never taught her how to stand up for herself. "You made me weak, Mom. You were always too soft. That's why Dad left you all those years." Dad didn't leave me. Dad had a heart attack in our garden while planting tomatoes, but I stopped correcting her after a while. It didn't matter what I said. She'd rewrite history to fit whatever narrative made her feel justified in treating me the way she did. The verbal abuse got worse. She'd criticize everything. The way I dressed. "You look like an old lady, Mom." "Oh, wait, you are one." The way I cleaned house. The way I chewed my food. The way I breathed too loudly when she was trying to watch her shows on the television I'd bought. "My shows were stupid," she said. "My friends were boring. Why did Mrs. Patterson from next door always have to come over? Didn't I have any dignity, hanging around with those gossipy old women?" I started seeing my friends less, then not at all. It was easier than fighting with Rachel, easier than coming home to her fury if I'd been out too long. She needed to know where I was, she said. What if something happened to me? She was just worried, just looking out for her elderly mother. I was 67, not dead, but I started to feel dead. Started to feel like a ghost haunting my own house. The financial control got tighter. She'd open my mail before I could get to it. "Just making sure you're not getting scammed, Mom. Old people get scammed all the time." She insisted on having access to my bank account. "What if you have a stroke? Someone needs to be able to pay your bills." I watched my savings drain away. Watched Rachel's closet fill with new clothes while she told me we couldn't afford to fix the leaky faucet in my bathroom. Watched her take weekend trips with her friends while telling me we needed to cut back on groceries. "You're so selfish, Mom. All you think about is yourself." This, after I'd made her breakfast, after I'd done her laundry, after I'd canceled my doctor's appointment because she needed the car that day. I became smaller, quieter. I stopped arguing because arguing made things worse. I learned to apologize for things that weren't my fault. I learned to walk on eggshells in my own home, the home Thomas and I had bought 43 years ago, where I'd raised my daughter, where I'd hung every picture on every wall. The worst part wasn't the money or the insults. It was the loneliness, the crushing, suffocating loneliness of living with someone who made me feel completely invisible unless she needed something from me. I thought about leaving. God, I thought about it. But where would I go? This was my house. Why should I leave my own house? And even if I tried, Rachel would find a way to stop me. She had access to everything. She knew all my passwords, monitored my phone, read my emails. She'd know if I tried to leave. She'd know if I tried to get help. Besides, she was my daughter, my only child, the baby I'd rocked to sleep, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose tears I'd dried through her first heartbreak. You don't give up on your children. That's what I told myself. You don't abandon your child, even when your child has abandoned any pretense of loving you back. But 3 months ago, something changed. I was at the grocery store, using the cash Rachel had grudgingly given me for food. I was in the produce section, trying to decide if I could justify buying the good strawberries or if I should stick to the bruised ones in the discount bin. Rachel would notice if I bought the expensive ones. She always noticed. Margaret? Margaret Whitmore? I turned to find Sarah Chen, an old colleague from my teaching days. I hadn't seen her in years, not since before Rachel moved back, not since I'd started declining invitations because it was easier than dealing with Rachel's sulking. Sarah? I said, and my voice cracked just saying her name. When was the last time someone had been happy to see me? We talked. Just for a few minutes. Right there among the bell peppers and zucchini. She told me about her grandson's graduation, about the book club she'd started, about her recent cruise to Alaska. Her life sounded so full, so free. You look tired, Margaret, she said, her eyes gentle with concern. Are you okay? I opened my mouth to say fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. That's what I always said. But standing there in the fluorescent lights of the grocery store, looking at this woman who'd known me when I was strong, when I was vibrant, when I was someone other than Rachel's servant, I couldn't do it. No, I whispered. I'm not okay. We went to the coffee shop next door. I told Sarah I could only stay 20 minutes. Rachel tracked the car's location. She'd want to know why I'd taken so long. In those 20 minutes, I told Sarah everything. The words poured out of me like water from a broken dam. The money, the control, the insults, the isolation, the way I disappeared into myself until I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Sarah didn't interrupt. She didn't tell me I was exaggerating or that Rachel probably didn't mean it that way. She didn't suggest I try talking to Rachel or that maybe I was being too sensitive. She just listened. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. Margaret, what you're describing is abuse. Financial abuse, emotional abuse. It doesn't matter that she's your daughter. This isn't okay. I started to protest, to make excuses. Rachel had been through so much. Her divorce had been hard. She was just stressed. She didn't mean it. Stop, Sarah said, firm but kind. I've watched you make yourself smaller and smaller over the years, and I didn't say anything because I thought you were just busy, just choosing other priorities. But this is different. You need help. She pulled out her phone and wrote something on a napkin. A name. Linda Morrison, Elder Advocacy Services. She's a social worker who specializes in cases like yours. Call her, please. I took the napkin, folded it carefully, and put it in my purse. I probably wouldn't call. What could a social worker do? This was my daughter. This was my family. You don't air your family's dirty laundry to strangers. But that napkin stayed in my purse. And 3 days later, when Rachel screamed at me for 20 minutes because I'd bought the wrong brand of coffee, when she called me stupid and useless and a burden, when she said she wished Grandma hadn't left me this house because then I'd be in a nursing home where I belonged, I went to my bedroom, closed the door, and called the number on that napkin. Linda Morrison answered on the second ring. I almost hung up. What would I say? How could I explain this to a stranger? But then I heard Rachel downstairs, slamming cabinet doors, and I made myself speak. My name is Margaret Whitmore. I think I need help. Those words were the hardest I've ever spoken. Admitting you're a victim when you're supposed to be the parent, when you raise this person, when somewhere along the way you failed so spectacularly that your own child treats you like garbage, it's not easy. It goes against every instinct you have as a mother. But I said it, and Linda listened. She explained that what Rachel was doing had a name: financial exploitation, emotional abuse, that it was more common than I thought, especially with adult children and their elderly parents. That it wasn't my fault. That there were options. We talked for an hour. I sat on my bathroom floor, voice barely above a whisper, terrified Rachel would hear. Linda was patient. She didn't push. She just gave me information, resources, options. By the end of that call, we had a plan. Not a plan to escape dramatically or call the police. That might put me in danger, Linda said. Rachel had control of too much. We needed to be strategic. Step 1 was getting my documents. Birth certificate, social security card, bank statements, the deed to my house. Things Rachel had locked in the safe in her bedroom. The safe that used to be in my bedroom until she moved it. She has a right to feel secure, I'd told myself when she did it. Never mind that these were my documents, my house, my life. Step 2 was money. Linda helped me open a new bank account at a different bank, one Rachel didn't know about. I started diverting my Social Security check there. Not all of it, just enough that Rachel wouldn't notice. $50 here, $75 there. It added up slowly, but it added up. Step 3 was documentation. Linda told me to keep a journal. Write down every incident, every insult, every demand for money, date, and time. She told me that if I felt safe doing so, I could record conversations on my phone. Not to use against Rachel legally necessarily, but to remind myself that this was real, that I wasn't crazy, that these things actually happened. I started recording, little snippets at first, then longer conversations. Rachel demanding $300 for a car repair that I later found out was actually a spa weekend. Rachel calling me pathetic because I'd forgotten to buy her favorite yogurt. Rachel telling me I was a terrible mother who'd ruined her life. Listening to those recordings later, alone in my room, was brutal. But it was also clarifying. In the moment, I could convince myself I was overreacting. But hearing it played back, hearing the contempt in her voice, the manipulation, the cruelty, I couldn't deny it anymore. Step 4 was finding a way out. Linda connected me with a lawyer who specialized in elder law. We met at the lawyer's office while Rachel thought I was at a doctor's appointment. His name was David Klein, and he had kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. "Mrs. Whitmore, I need you to understand something," he said. "This is your house, your money, your life. Your daughter is an adult. You have every legal right to ask her to leave." "But she'll hate me," I whispered. "She already treats you terribly," he said gently. "What exactly are you afraid of losing?" That question haunted me for days. What was I afraid of losing? Rachel's love? I didn't have that. Rachel's respect? Never had it. The fantasy that somehow, someday, she'd go back to being the sweet little girl who used to make me dandelion bouquets? That girl was gone, if she'd ever really existed outside my memories. What I was really afraid of losing was the illusion, the pretense that I had a family, that I wasn't alone, but I was alone. I'd been alone for 9 years, just with someone around to remind me of it constantly. David helped me draft eviction papers, helped me set up a trust for my assets, helped me prepare for the worst-case scenarios. We moved slowly, carefully. Rachel couldn't know. Not yet. Meanwhile, life at home got worse. Rachel started bringing her boyfriend around, Marcus. He was 45, unemployed, and mean. He'd sit on my couch, eat my food, and make comments about how I needed to update my outdated house. "This place is a dump," he'd say. "When Rachel inherits it, we're gonna gut it." When, not if. Like I was already dead. They started talking about it in front of me. Their plans for my house, how they'd knock down walls, put in a new kitchen, maybe rent it out for income while they lived somewhere more modern. "Mom won't mind," Rachel said. "She won't be around to care." I served them dinner and said nothing. But after they went to Rachel's room, I sat at my kitchen table and called Linda. "I can't do this anymore," I told her. "I need to move forward." "Are you ready?" she asked. Was I? Could anyone really be ready to destroy their relationship with their only child? But what relationship was there to destroy? Rachel hadn't loved me in years, if she ever had. She saw me as an ATM, a maid, an obstacle between her and her inheritance. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." We moved quickly after that. David filed the eviction notice. 30 days, legally required in our state. Rachel was an adult tenant with no lease, which actually made things easier legally. She had to go. I had the locks changed the same day the notice was served. I moved my valuables to a storage unit. I opened a P.O. box for my mail. I changed all my passwords. I contacted my bank and put alerts on all my accounts. When the sheriff came to serve Rachel the eviction notice, I wasn't home. Linda had advised me to be somewhere safe. I was at Sarah's house, shaking so hard I could barely hold my coffee cup. Rachel called 67 times in 3 hours. She left voicemails screaming, crying, pleading. She texted that I was making the biggest mistake of my life, that I'd regret this, that she'd make sure everyone knew what a terrible mother I was. She showed up at Sarah's house, pounded on the door. Sarah called the police while I hid in her bedroom like a child. The police explained to Rachel that she needed to leave, that she was trespassing, that she had 30 days to vacate my property. She screamed that I was her mother, that I couldn't do this to her, that she'd take me to court for elder abuse. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. But here's what I didn't expect. I didn't expect the grief. Even though I was doing the right thing, even though Linda and David and Sarah all assured me I was, I grieved. I mourned the daughter I'd wanted, the relationship I'd hoped for, the family I'd never have. I cried more in those 30 days than I had in years. But I also felt something else, something I barely recognized at first. Relief. Then, 3 weeks into the eviction process, I had an idea. A terrible, wonderful, probably petty idea. But after 9 years of abuse, after countless times swallowing my words and my pride and my pain, I thought maybe I'd earned the right to one small moment of poetic justice. Rachel's birthday was in 2 weeks. She'd be 42. For 41 years, I'd made her a cake. Even the years she'd been cruel, even the years she'd forgotten to call me on my birthday, I'd made her a cake. This year, I'd make her one more. I invited her to dinner, sent her a text. Please come to the house for your birthday. I need to talk to you. She probably thought I was caving, that I was going to apologize, beg her to stay, tear up the eviction notice. She showed up at 6 o'clock sharp, Marcus in tow, a smug smile on her face. But when she walked through the door and saw the table, the smile faded. There were 3 people sitting there: Sarah, Linda Morrison, and David Klein, my lawyer. The cake was there, 42 candles, carefully arranged. But next to it were manila folders, documents, bank statements showing 9 years of unauthorized withdrawals, recordings on a laptop, queued up and ready to play. A detailed journal of financial exploitation and emotional abuse. Rachel looked at the table, then at me. Her face cycled through confusion, then understanding, then rage. "What is this?" she spat. "This," I said, my voice steady for the first time in years, "is your birthday party. Or rather, it's mine." I walked to the cake, picked up the lighter. "I'm 67 years old today," I said. "Well, not today exactly. My actual birthday was 6 months ago. You forgot it. But I didn't. And I decided that today, I'm giving myself a gift." I lit the candles. All 42 of them. "These aren't for the years of your life, Rachel. They're for the years of mine that I'm taking back. 42 years since I became a mother. 42 years of loving you, raising you, supporting you. 42 years that led to 9 years of abuse." "Abuse?" she shrieked. "I'm your daughter. You can't abuse your own mother." "That's exactly what you've been doing," Linda said calmly. "And we have documentation of all of it." David opened one of the folders, started reading. Dates, times, amounts of money taken, recordings of verbal abuse, testimony from neighbors who'd witnessed incidents. Rachel's face went from red to white. Marcus started edging toward the door. "This is insane," Rachel said, but her voice had lost its strength. "You're my mother. You're supposed to take care of me." "I did take care of you," I said. "For 33 years, I did nothing but take care of you. I gave you everything I had, and you thanked me by stealing from me, insulting me, and treating me like I was nothing. I never." "You did," I said. I pressed play on one of the recordings. Her own voice filled the room. Cruel, mocking, telling me I was worthless, that I was lucky she even stayed with me, that no one else would want a pathetic old woman like me. She flinched. Actually flinched at the sound of her own words. "That's not context you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "I understand that I taught you that you could treat people this way. I taught you that being kind and forgiving meant being weak. I taught you that mothers are doormats, and that was my mistake, my failure as a parent." I blew out the candles. All 42 of them. So happy birthday to me, Rachel. This is the birthday where I stop failing, where I stop letting you abuse me, where I choose myself. What do you want? She asked, and now she was crying. Real tears or manipulative ones? I couldn't tell anymore. Money? I'll pay you back. I'll get a job. I don't want your money, I said. I want you out of my house. You have 1 week left on your eviction notice. I suggest you use it to pack. And if I don't? Then the sheriff will remove you, David said. And Mrs. Whitmore has grounds to pursue charges for financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. I'm her daughter, Rachel screamed. That makes it worse, not better, Linda said quietly. Rachel looked at me. Really looked at me. For a moment, I thought I saw something there. Regret, maybe. Recognition. But then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. You'll regret this, she said. You'll die alone. No one will care. No one will visit you. And when you're gone, I'll get everything anyway. Actually, David said, pulling out another document, Mrs. Whitmore has established a trust. Upon her death, this house and all her assets will go to various charities. You're not in the will. The look on Rachel's face almost made up for 9 years of abuse. Almost. She left, slammed the door so hard the pictures on the wall shook. Marcus ran after her like the coward he was. And I stood there in my dining room, surrounded by people who actually cared about me, and I started to laugh, then cry, then laugh again. Sarah hugged me. Linda squeezed my hand. David smiled and said he'd handle any legal fallout. That was 6 weeks ago. Rachel moved out. She sends me emails sometimes, long rambling things about what a terrible mother I am, how I've ruined her life, how she'll never forgive me. I don't read them anymore. I have them forwarded directly to David, just in case. I sold the house. Too many bad memories. I bought a small condo in a 55-plus community. It has a garden where I'm growing tomatoes, like Thomas used to. I joined Sarah's book club. I volunteer at the local library. I'm still grieving. Still sad about the daughter I don't have, the relationship that never was. Some days are harder than others. But I'm free. For the first time in 9 years, I'm free. And that birthday cake? I never did eat it. Sarah, Linda, David, and I just sat around my table, drinking tea, making plans for my new life. That was the best birthday party I ever had.